talk about what are all the pieces that go into clothing production? Like, what are all the costs that go into making a garment?
Okay, I want to start by saying that clothing companies, they make all their money by selling clothes. There is no hidden income somewhere. And so of course there's investment money, but for your average company, for a fashion company, if they're not getting the money from the clothing sales, there's not some additional source of revenue. Of course, it's not true if like you're an influencer and you have like Instagram money or something, but just straight up clothing companies. So think about everything I'm about to tell you that goes into making clothes, and then think about the price of your average garment, and then you tell me what is too expensive. All right. I just want you to keep that in mind. Okay? So it starts with design process, of course, where someone has to come up with the creative ideas to make a collection look interesting, and they have to figure out color, and color is such a huge industry. So much of what we buy in every category of product is dictated by colors that we like in our house, on our bodies, driving around, etc. We have to figure out the fabrics. We have to buy the fabrics. So the whole design process happens, and we have to sample. The sampling process is very extensive, where we make the patterns and we sew the samples. We fit them on fit models. We adjust the fit. We make new iterations until we have a satisfactory fit with the fabrics that are going to fit our price bracket, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's that whole product development process where we're also testing embroideries, we're designing prints, patterns on fabrics, and making samples of all those and making sure that they look like what we want them to look like. I mean, wash tests are a corner that a lot of designers cut. But you are supposed to test the wash of your garments so you can put that in your care labels and instruct your customers on how to wash things. You're supposed to run wash tests, and you have to dye the clothes. There's like all this process in sampling and getting that right. There are great strides being made in 3D software where you can have fewer sample iterations because you're testing a lot of the stuff on 3D software like Clo3D before you get something made in fabric form. But that whole process is really long, and it requires way too many fittings. Like, I've had girlfriends just text me secretly in like the boring part of a fitting being like, I've been here for 3 hours and I'm about to die. Like, you could do it, hang in there. But I know those fittings are so terrible and long. So the sales process is different for wholesale versus direct to consumer. Wholesale being when designers sell items in bulk to different stores, like selling 50 pieces to Nordstrom and then Nordstrom selling them individually. And then direct to consumer is if a designer just sells only through their own website to customers directly. And so the sales process is different, but all the people that you had to pay for the design process and product development process and all those materials have to come from the cost of the clothes. Also, paying salespeople, whatever their base rate is, their commission, all the sales materials, that has to come out of the clothes. So there's sales, there's marketing, and then all of this is happening before even production. And then production happens, and yeah, so you get the sample. If you love the sample and you're ready to go, first you have to grade the pattern. Grading the pattern means you have to make all the sizes of the pattern. So if you have a sample that's a medium, you also have to make extra small to however size you get. And then you have to order the fabric. You have to cut. So we call it CMT, cut, make, trim. That's just our lingo, and that is usually a base price a factory will give you. The CMT is cut, make, trim, cutting the fabric out, sewing it together, trimming it up, which is like, punching eyelets, adding buttons and buttonholes. That's what we consider trim in our industry, or all those like little zippers and doodads and all those things. And, anytime you have any additional embellishment like decorative stitching that's all over your blouse, all the
Mhm.
smocking and everything, we have to send that out to get smocked by a special smocker. I don't know if that's what they are called.
It sounds right.
That sounds right. All the decorative stitching and the embroidery and any sort of applique, stamp, chenille patch, anything, all of that is extra. And yeah, and then things have to get shipped to wherever they're going, whether it's individually, to a warehouse, to a store, all those things. So all that process, all that process has to be costed out and then, overhead divided by how many units you think you're going to sell. That has to get included in the price of the garment.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
seemed like a really long, overly drawn out explanation, but I just really wanted to emphasize how many people and how much work goes into making a singular garment.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I think that was so important to dive into all that because there's just so much more than I feel like the everyday shopper expects and knows about. And I think it's really important, as you said in the beginning, like when you think about all of those parts that go into making a garment, making a t shirt, like it doesn't even make sense how cheap some of it is. It kind of you rethink what you find expensive when you consider how many steps and how many hands touched that garment. So, do you have, I don't think you've worked for any fast fashion brands yourself, but do you know what steps fast fashion brands are sort of skipping in this process, if they are at all, in order to make their garments really cheap?
Yes, they do not do any design development at all because they pull directly from the runway. They basically have
Mm,
people, their design teams. Like, I have never worked in fast fashion, but I have friends who work in fast fashion.
mm-hmm.
And, I don't really blame people who work in fast fashion because rent is rent, bills are bills. And I absolutely get that. But yeah, I've had friends who worked at places like Forever 21, different fast fashion places, and their design, their design teams. Um, One person I know, she and her creative director would go shopping. They would go shopping at Chloe, at Prada, at Saks, and buy things, take them back to the office. Their pattern makers would knock off these items and make a simpler version. And knocking off means like literally like copying the pattern, like you lay the fabric down on the paper and you trace the shapes out.
Wow.
And then one of my girlfriends, she quit one of her fast fashion jobs because she said that she couldn't handle the embarrassment of returning clothes anymore. Because they would send her back and be like, oh, yeah, we're done using these, so go return them. And the first time she
Wow.
did it, she was just so embarrassed. She's like, I did not survive all those sleepless nights at fashion school with you so I could do this. And I'm like, I feel you, girl. I feel you. That sounds embarrassing. So they do that, or they just look right on the runway. And once you get to a point where you have a back catalog of patterns, you'll notice if you pay attention that a lot of these bodies are identical. Like, you take a coat pattern and you change the collar. You take a basic fit and flare dress and you change the length and you change the sleeve, little things like that. But they have all of these blocks. Blocks are something all designers use. That's not a fast fashion thing. For example, if you're a denim company at whatever price point you are, uh, if you have a fit that works for your brand and you have a great fit that makes people's butts look good and stuff, you're not going to get rid of that and develop a new pattern the next season. No way. Because your brand is also based on how people perceive your fit and how easily they can reorder styles from you again. It's like, oh, I'm a Levi's 8 and I know that. And so I can quickly buy another one.
Hmm.
And oh, yeah, this brand makes me look so good. I want to buy another pair. So all fashion design companies, they make blocks and they reuse the blocks and so does fast fashion. So they don't do any development. They don't spend time choosing colors or trend forecasting. They look at runways. They simplify styles. Their intelligence is about figuring out what is going to be the big trend hit the next season. But it's easy to do because they push out so much volume that it's almost just like throwing a bunch of darts instead of just one dart, and like eventually something's gonna hit. So yeah, they knock out so much product development, so much design. And so that whole part of the process, that whole creative process, the fitting and everything, they no longer have to grade anything. They no longer have to develop anything. They
Mhm.
really only do that if they are doing a collaboration with a big name designer and they insist on a different particular silhouette.
Okay.
But otherwise, they skip all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And I know, I mean, it's been a while since I've shopped fast fashion, but like going into thrift stores and trying on some pieces, they like will fit so funky. And there was one time that there were like five of the same top, like in different sizes. And I'm not sure if just a bunch of people returned it or if it was like excess stock, but I literally could not for the life of me figure out how to like put it on. Like there were so many ties, like I couldn't figure out how to wear it. And yeah, I just think about like how many, they probably with the speed and the price point, they probably really don't have the time or money to invest in the fit very much.
There's also I'm gonna get real geeky here. There's this thing called tolerance. And there's that old joke with cars. What's the difference between a Lexus and a Toyota? Like higher tolerances, tighter tolerances. So basically what that means for clothing is if I tell you like this t-shirt, it's just like this is my uniform long sleeve black t-shirts. I have like several of these and I always wear it when I'm teaching. Let's say that the bust measurement is supposed to be X. Okay. These things are all sewn by hand still. They're all done by human beings sitting in front of a machine. And so there's always going to be errors. These things are cut out by people and sewn by people. So there's always going to be a margin of error.
Hmm.
But when you have tight quality control and high standards, and you're working with your factory consistently to make sure that they're sending you quality, you can demand higher, tighter tolerances. Like the difference should be like give or take half an inch. If it's more than half an inch of the measurement I wanted from you, you have to take it back. I'm not going to pay for it. You have to fix it. Okay. Things like
Mm-hmm.
that. You get what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And when you have fast fashion companies that are just pumping out volume, they don't care. They don't care about tolerances. I don't think I mean, they might put that there just in case, they want to sue a factory or something. Like, my guess is their paperwork is insane,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't care. They really don't care. And if you want to do a funny experiment, next time you're in a store, and it's not about a size 8 over here and a size 8 over there. Take like 3 pairs of pants that are all the same size into the dressing room and do some basic measurements. And you'll see who has tight tolerances and who does not.
Mm. Yeah, that's really interesting.